Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm excited.
I know, me too. I've never done a joint live before. I was like, I don't really know how this works.
I've done a few now and they are really good.
Yeah, they do. The more like, it's less like you're talking to yourself, which is
Yeah.
always nice.
And it's like a Skype conversation, but that everyone else can watch.
Yeah, I was thinking before it's kind of like a live podcast episode.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about what you do and who you help?
Yeah, so my name is Julia, if any of you guys don't know me, hello. So I am a financial coach and accountant, and I run a business called EasyAsVAT, or VAT, whatever you prefer. And basically what I do is help creative female entrepreneurs with the number side of their business, so things like tax, accounting, general like money management and pricing, which we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And I generally help like any kind of creative business. So I have worked with a lot of photographers, but I've also worked with like some really like random and like cool businesses. So like people who make like hair accessories, that was a cool one.
Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of different businesses. But the main thing that they have in common is that they're all like creative kind of things. So yeah,
That's amazing that you've gone so niche.
I know. Well, when I started, I was like, this is too niche.
No, never
But I
too
think
niche.
it's good, like, because people know then they're like, this is for me. So,
Yeah,
and I
totally.
think
That's
that's good.
exactly what I thought when I first found you. I was like, oh, this is perfect. She's literally talking to me as a person.
Yeah,
And I think creative businesses are so specific and we all hate numbers.
I
So
know.
having someone who like breaks it down and makes it sound so easy is amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all
I
right.
try. And I think because, like, so I was working as an accountant and
Yeah.
project manager, and I think I'm quite a creative person. And because that role was so boring, I was like, I really want to find a way to make it like creative. And I think that like it works so well together because I love creative people and like creative businesses, and I'm quite creative as well. So I think it's
Yeah.
like, it's a little bit different than like an accountant just being like, oh, you need to do this. Like we can have like a proper conversation. And I have a lot of friends who run creative businesses, and I'd say probably now my business is quite creative itself.
Yeah, I think so.
So
Oh, you're falling.
I know I was
There we
going to
go.
say I'm on a tripod, so it does fall down sometimes.
I'm holding it
Hopefully
now.
it
It's
won't.
fine.
Yeah. But
Carry
yeah,
on.
so that's me in a nutshell. I'm
Cool.
creative. I like creative businesses, and they hopefully like me.
Yeah, no, you've got the perfect balance of being like mathematical and creative. So that's amazing. And I'm excited for your what's it called? Your independent girls club that you're launching?
Yeah, the Independent Girls Collective. So it's basically my
That's right.
membership. People keep messaging me and being like, why didn't you just call it the EasyAsVAT membership? And I was like, I just don't like that name. I wanted it to have a fun name. And like, I want
Yeah.
it to be, because like all of what I do is like kind of teaching women to deal with these things themselves. So I
Yeah.
thought the name was quite fitting because like everything I do is kind of geared at making women more independent, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the hope anyway.
Yeah. No, definitely. So obviously I'm a fashion photographer and a lot of the people who are here and will be watching today are other fashion photographers.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that comes up whenever I'm talking to other photographers is that they struggle with pricing, they struggle with knowing how much to charge, knowing how to sort of make a sustainable business for themselves.
Yeah.
And I've definitely been in that position. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what is the best way to figure out what your rate is? Like, do you have a formula you can recommend, or is there any strategy?
Yeah, kind of. So there's kind of like, there's four main points that I would usually recommend. So the first two are kind of like based around you. So the first one, like really importantly, is how much money do you need to make to
Yeah.
survive? So the best way to work that out is how much does it cost you to be able to do the, like provide the photography services. So I know that obviously you have to buy your equipment. I'm guessing
Yeah.
also you need to cover things like travel into photo shoots,
Yeah.
possibly hiring assistants, that kind of thing. So obviously you need to cover those. Sorry, I keep moving my hair. I've just cut my fringe and it keeps
It's
tickling
fine.
me. It's very annoying. But yeah, so obviously you've got to be able to cover those, and you also need
Yeah.
to know how much money you need to make each month to survive.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a little bit different if you're just starting out and you're still in sort of a full-time job, because you can
Yeah.
afford to be a little bit cheaper then.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is something you'd agree with, but I say to a lot of people when they're first starting out, because I think there's a lot of people who'll say like, never work for free, and like, you know, anyone who wants you to work free is taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
But I think when you first start out, it's good to get that experience, especially if you're still in full-time work. And I know you
Yeah.
said a couple of days ago you were looking for some students to like help you on a shoot.
Yeah.
So it's really important to get that kind of like the knowledge and that like hands-on
Yes.
experience, and hopefully like a good testimonial or good feedback.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
do a
so
lot of free work still today.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
cool. And you're
Yeah.
quite like, you know,
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
So
And it's
yeah.
just, it's all part of portfolio building, especially for us as photographers, and also as creative people. A lot of the time when we're working for clients, we can't always make the imagery that we really want to make. So working for free / making our own projects allows us to create what we kind of want to make. So I do think there's definitely a place for free work.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, like I think it's not probably very beneficial to be like too much one way or the other. Like you've got to be very critical of the work that you're doing and think, is this actually going to give me relevance experience? Am I being taken advantage of? But if you're happy to do it and you are getting that good experience and you make sure that you get some feedback so you can improve in the future, there's nothing wrong with that. So yes, you've got to think about like how much it costs you and how much you need to make each month. So that's the first thing. The second thing is taking into account like your lifestyle and how much you would like to make each month, and how many jobs you can kind of fit in each month, and whether that's actually realistic. Because a lot of people will kind of, if they're underpricing, they'll book in loads and loads of jobs each month. I'm not sure if this is the same for fashion photography, so if I say anything and it's not correct,
Don't
you
worry.
just correct me.
I will.
But yeah, so like a lot of people underprice and they have to like work 24/7 to make ends meet. Obviously that's not very sustainable. So you've got to kind of think about it in those terms and think, okay, well, if I need say £2,000 a month to like cover everything, and I can do, you know, I can only do one shoot a week, then you need to be charging like £500 for each shoot. That's obviously, that's just theoretical. I don't know how much exactly. So those are the two sort of like things that you need to think about for yourself, and at that point you don't need to think about anyone else. Once you've got those figures, you can kind of start going a bit more external. So what I would say to a lot of clients is, if you can, have a look at some people who are doing the same thing as you, and try and find out like how much they charge. So is this usually something that would be like on your website, like how much you charge for a job?
The thing is, this is why fashion is quite tricky, is that we don't tend to display prices on our website, because fashion is kind of done on a very project to project basis. And the funny thing that what we have to deal with often is usage rights and like licensing fees. So I know that trips up a lot of people, and I will probably go into more detail about that at a different time. But because we charge different rates for different people, sometimes I have a bit more of a set pricing structure, but I don't list it on my website at the moment. But that being said, there are so many groups like the one that I have where I would be more than happy to be discussing pricing. So if anyone ever felt like they needed to sort of be like, okay, I really don't know how much a good rate is, you can find out, because there are Facebook groups like mine, like others, where you can just have open conversations, or just reaching out to a few photographers that you know and trust and just being open and honest. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had a lot more, especially within the fashion photography community. I think within wedding photography and all the sort of the more lifestyle stuff, prices tend to be public. So it's much easier to sort of go and do that investigating. But fashion seems to be such more of a more closed, quite private, a little bit more, just closed environment, which I'm trying to challenge.
Yeah, because I think that's the case with a lot of fashion jobs, because it's such a, like, I don't think shady is the right word, but like, it's such a kind of, you know, there's still loads of like internships going on, and everyone's quite hush hush about how much they make. But like groups like yours, and you know, having contacts and having acquaintances and like networking with people who do what you do is so important, because even if you don't want to have that public discussion and put on Facebook, like, I don't know how much to charge for this, or like, I've been asked to do a job for this much, is that right? If you've got those connections, you can still have the conversation maybe more privately. Because I know a lot of people who've like, they've been charging a certain amount and thought it was okay, kind of met someone who does what they do, and they've been like told, you're not charging enough, like you could have been earning so much more money. So it's so important, as you say, to be like open about these things and to kind of like discuss it. If you can find like maybe a mentor who, you know, can help to guide you when you're first starting out, or just, you know, make sure that you get involved in your Facebook group, and I guess maybe like networking events that are relevant with people in your industry. It doesn't even have to be a photographer. If it's someone who works in the fashion industry, they might know how much it
absolutely.
sort of is.
You know, like makeup artists are going to be on shoots, and they'll be talking to people who would know what so-and-so has been charging roughly, or like editors of magazines. There's so many different ways that we can find out what sort of industry standard is. But it does change, you know, depending on what country you're in, what city you're in, what part of the country you're in. Like, are you in London? Because if you're in London, then there's going to be completely different pricing to if you're like me down here in Cornwall. So it's a tricky one, and that's why I it definitely stumps so many people. But trying to approach it in a much more strategic and like broken down way, like you've just described, I think will help everyone to kind of be like, okay, well, I know that I need to at least be charging this much, and from that point on, you can you know, increase it or decrease it or however you want to do it. But knowing that minimum price of, I need to make this much a month to just pay my bills, to cover my costs of my business, to literally meet those costs, then I'm okay. Anything more than that is great and it's profit, but I need to hit those targets at least, like you've just been saying.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like, if you're happy to charge a certain price, then that's absolutely fine. And if someone tries to guilt trip you for charging less than them, like, just you don't need to take that into account. I guess it's a tricky one, because I know a lot of, because I quite like in the blogging community, and I know a lot of like blog photographers, and they'll be like, oh, I hate all these people who like charge less because it undermines how much I can get paid. But at
I
the
don't
end
agree
of
with that.
No, exactly. Like, it's each to your own. You know, if you charge a lot of money, it's because you've got that high quality premium service. And that's the thing with prices. It's not always a case that people want the cheapest. And this leads quite nicely onto my last point, which is thinking about your clients. So if you're going for very like sort of premium fashion shoots, and you're charging a little bit more, that's a good thing, because that's kind of saying to your client, like, I'm a high quality, like, premium photographer, and that you've got the skills and the experience to do it. Not to say that, like, if you charge less, people will think you're not as good. It's just that you've got to kind of tailor it to who your client is. And it is the case that, you know, as you get more experience, you can charge more because you've seen more and you're prepared for more, and you pick up more skills along the way.
Which is exactly what I've done.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, as you continue to like pick up? I'm sure, like, how long have you been doing this for?
Well, professionally for 2.5 years, like as my career, and I started off at a really low price, and every
Yeah.
couple of months I would bring it up. I actually brought my price down for a little while because I went a little bit too high and just wasn't booking work, and then I brought it down by about £200 per shoot, and suddenly it really picked up, and that was perfect because it got me going. And then it got to a point where I was so booked up on that price that I was like, okay, I'm going to put it up by £50.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely, £50 more and more and more. And hey, lo and behold, no one questions it.
Yeah, and like it's fine to do that. I think people are worried to change things in case they look a bit like I don't know, like they can't decide. No one cares.
No.
Like no one's gonna come on and be like, "Ooh, that was only like 150 whatever the other day."
Yeah.
No
one's paying attention that closely.
Yeah, and like I bet some people come to you anyway and say like, "Would you do it for this much?" And if there's someone you'd love to work with, then you might say yes to that lower price.
Yeah, yeah.
And
it's just like finding ways. Like if I get someone who comes to me and says, I really want to work with you, but I've only got this much money. It's like, okay, for that amount of money, I can do this for you. It's just about figuring out what we can make work. And then sometimes they'll come to me and say, I really can't afford that right now. But then not too long ago, I had someone come back to me 6 months later when they had a bit more money and they were like, right, I've got the money now. Let's do it.
Yeah, and like, it's just being educated about it and kind of knowing your boundaries. And a lot of the time, a really good technique is to think, what would I not be happy to accept?
Yes.
Because if someone says an amount to you and instantly like your heart sinks and you just feel like you're probably not going to do your best work on that job anyway, because you're going to be resentful that you're not being paid properly for it. But your gut instinct is smart. Like it knows, like if you feel bad about that price, then you shouldn't accept it, because it's probably not going to be a good experience for you, and it's probably not going to be the best experience for the client, and that could damage the business.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, like I feel bad that I can't just be like, you need to charge this much.
I know.
But it's so like, it's such a personal thing. And I think, but if you use those 4 things, so like how much money you need to make, how much you can work, and like what kind of lifestyle you want, because you might be able to do like 10 shoots a month, but you might actually only want to do like 5, and that's fine. And then thinking about like what the kind of industry standard is, if you can, that's why it's good to have contacts, and then also thinking about what the clients that you're working with will want to pay and have available to pay, because I don't know if you still count this as fashion photography, but if you compare, say, like doing a street style shoot for a blogger compared to like a shoot for Vogue, obviously the blogger's not going to have as much money. So it's a different kind of, like, you've got to think like, what kind of clients do you want to work with, and you almost want your price to kind of be like, oh yeah, I was expecting it to be that. Like you don't want it to be like too low, because they might be a bit like, that seems like too good to be true.
One thing that I do often is actually ask my clients when they come to me what their budget is, because sometimes you find out, like I recently had someone who told me something that was way higher than what I charge daily. So instead of going, okay, I'm going to ask for that whole money, I was very honest and said, this is my day rate. But you can be a bit clever about it and sort of offer them up value it a little bit, like say, okay, well, I can do, this is my day rate, but how about for that amount of money we do this and this and this? So in the end, you kind of get all that money out of the person. That sounds like a terrible thing to say, but you get
like it's your job, you need to make money.
Yeah, but you use that budget that they have and put it to the best of their advantage. Like, give them something amazing, and it makes everyone happy in the end, because they've got incredible stuff. They feel like they got way more for their money, because originally they thought it was going to cost them this much to do just the one thing. Instead, they've spent 2 times and they've got something really brilliant out of it. So that's just one thing to think about, I think. And then you can also split up things into packages. Like, I've got different values for different things. Like if I'm shooting for just an hour or 2, it's going to be this much, and if I'm shooting for a whole day, then I have a day rate as well, and I can throw in like extra value into different things. Like if they want a certain amount of extra images, I can charge a little bit extra for a certain amount of images. So there's all sorts of ways that you can sort of structure everything to make it work for you as a business.
Yeah, totally. And like saying about what you said about the value, that's so, so important, because you're kind of making the client feel like they've got a really good deal then.
Yeah.
And it is also really clever to like ask them what their budget is, because that way you don't have to, because it's so hard to like, when someone's like, oh, how much would you kind of charge for this? Like I'm getting it at the moment because I've just started doing like more sort of like workshops and like panel events, and people will be like, oh, let me know how much you want to be charged. And I'm like, oh no, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So it's a good move to be like, well, how much is your budget? And I'll sort of make my decision based on that. And it's not a case of like you chickening out of quoting. It's just that, you know,
finding
if
out
it's something
where
that,
they're at.
yeah, exactly. And like, if it's a good deal, you can do it. If it doesn't feel right, you don't have to. Everyone's sort of on the same page.
It also can like accelerate the process. For example, if they come back and say that they've only got much lower than you even charge for a 1 hour shoot, you can just cut it off and be like, I'm really sorry, it's just not going to work. You're not wasting their time and you're not wasting your own time.
Yeah.
Or if the other way around, if it's like perfect, then you can proceed. But
yeah, I think that's why it can be a good idea to have the price on your website, because it just cuts out a load of people who can't afford you straight away.
Yeah, at least a starting price.
Yeah,
I've got a starting price.
Yeah, so like at least they kind of go in, you know, with the knowledge of like, okay, well, I need this much in my budget, and then
at least
people say like they're scared that no one will email them, and it's like, no, you will get less emails. It's just that like you'll like cut out all the people who are going to waste your time because they can't afford to pay you, and you're not wasting their time either then.
Totally.
But yeah, how does it work in terms of fashion photography? So would people usually get in touch with you and ask for a quote, or would you get in touch with them and pitch to them?
I do a bit of both. So I do quite a lot of pitching myself to more brands, and in that way I tend to sort of go to them. I'll offer them something for free to start with, and that's kind of gets the conversation going, and shows them what I can do, and that works really well. And then from that point on, we will often have a discussion of what my sort of half day and full day rates are, and how I work and all that stuff. And then if someone comes to me, it's just the other way around. You know, they find me through my website or through my social media and come and say, you know, I've got this project, I need this done. This is how much money I have, or how much do you charge? That tends to be the conversation. Yeah.
So do you have like a specific type of like brand that you would work with, or is it kind of a varied kind of bag?
It can be. I will tend to show brands on my website or on my social media that I want to target more of. Because I often do jobs that aren't necessarily perfectly in line with the direction my business necessarily is going, so those don't get shown so much, but I still do them.
I think everyone does. Like, it's kind of like you know, everyone's got part of the jobs that they don't really like to do, but you know, it's part of like, it's your bread and butter, as my old boss used to say. Like, it might not be your favorite thing to do, it might not be the most exciting, but you know, it's a job and you get paid to do it. Not everything has to be your dream job. I think that's like a big misconception at the moment. And it's like, it's bad to be like one extreme or the other. Like, obviously if you've got a client list of people that you don't really want to work with, that's bad. But if, you know, if you're kind of just starting out and you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to accept anyone unless they're like my absolute dream clients, then you're going to be quiet for a bit.
It's going to get tough.
But I feel like I'm interviewing you now, because I'm asking
you
it's
like great.
questions.
I love it. Ask away. Ask as many questions as you want. I'll ask you one now, though.
Okay.
So what tips do you have for feeling confident about your pricing? And like, I know that for a lot of people, and me included, I don't have this problem so much now, but when I was just getting started, like telling people what my price was so hard, and I would sort of get really major anxiety over just pressing send on that email or having that phone conversation. Like, what can we do to feel confident about the number?
I think firstly, it's probably a really boring one to say, but I think the more you do something and the more experience you get, the more confident you're going to be in yourself.
Totally.
And the more you're going to know what prices are like kind of going to fly with people, and you know, you just get more confident generally the more you do something. So that's the main thing. I think everyone has that little like tummy flutter when they send a quote on an email, and that's totally normal, especially when you're just starting out. But I think as well, like a lot of like inside work and like knowing your worth is so important for like improving your confidence. And again, comes with experience. That's the short answer. I'm just giving you the rambling answer.
No, that's perfect.
But yeah, like working on things like your mindset, because a lot of people kind of, they're like, yeah, I want to do this and get paid, but they also feel bad charging for something that they love doing. And I know that for most photographers, it is something that you guys genuinely love doing, and it's like your passion, and that's why it's become your job. And a lot of people sort of deep down inside are like, well, I can't charge much for that because I like doing it. But actually, if you like doing something, you're probably really, really good at it because you probably practice all the time. So, you know, it's just sort of doing that mindset work to like build your confidence, and sort of the more you do that and the more you kind of quote to people and pitch to people, the less scary it becomes. And I say that as someone who still does get really scared to do that.
Same. Me too.
Yeah,
like 100%.
It's so scary. I hope it goes away at some point.
I find it depends who I think that the bigger the client, the scarier it is. And then like the more you do something, it's like everything, practice makes perfect. If it's someone brand new, or if I'm suddenly charging a little bit more, if I've upped my price a little bit, then it's like, gets a bit scary again. But then very quickly that price becomes the normal, and then it becomes easy. And then when you've done stuff at that price that many times, it's no longer scary. So just having the confidence to just press send, and like knowing, I think as well, that when you press send, thinking about, like, I try to put myself in my own shoes and think, okay, if someone quotes me and I ask someone how much they charge and they say something that's way over my budget, I'm not going to judge them. Like, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, well, they're really horrible because they've charged way more than I can afford. I'm probably actually going to go, oh, they must be really good because I can't afford that. And equally, if someone comes back and says that, you know, they're cheaper than I thought they were going to be, I'm also not going to judge them for that. So I think remembering that people aren't sitting behind their computers going, well, who do they think they are to charge that much? Like,
the worst anyone's going to do is ignore you, which is annoying, but, you know, it's better than what you're probably thinking. Or come back and say, no, it's too much. I'm sorry. No one will probably, like 99%, no one is going to come back and be like, how dare you charge that much? Who do you think you are? Like, does that ever happen to you? Exactly.
No, I've never had anyone ever criticize me for my price. It's always just been, oh, I'm really sorry, that's just out of my budget right now. I'll get back to you if I ever can afford that. Or that's it. That's literally all I've ever had.
Yeah, exactly. So like, no one is going to come back. Like, the worst they can say is no. So that's, if you need to write that down somewhere on your laptop
and just stick it on a post-it note.
Yeah, look at it before you send that email and just think the worst they can say is no. And that's it. What was I going to say then? I did have a really good point then, which is based on what I was saying before. No, it's good. I like them when these are more chatty. It's more fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
But yeah, like, I think, you know, if you're scared to ask them for your quote, like, always convey the value that you're offering to them. As we said before, and, you know, if you really are scared, ask them what the budget is, as you've said. And that's a good little tactic for kind of trying to find out. You just want to know how much they want you to say sometimes, especially if it's like a job that you really want to do. Sometimes you just like, oh my God, please just tell me how much you want and I'll do it.
And sometimes you'll ask them what their budget is and they'll go, I have no idea. Like, some people just genuinely don't know how much a photographer costs. And at that point, that's where it's really good to have done the maths and all those stuff that you were talking about at first, just to know that, okay, I need to have covered these basic costs to survive and to cover my business, and maybe I want to add 20% on top of that for profit.
Yeah, and like, you know, there's nothing wrong with making a profit as well. A lot of people will be like, oh, well, it only cost me this much to provide it. It's like, well, it's a business, so like, you do want to make a profit at some point.
Yeah, you want to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, if you're not making money from it, it's not really a business, is it?
No.
It's more of a very expensive hobby. um, so yeah, but I think, you know, it is scary.
Yeah.
But and that's totally normal. I think the
Mm.
thing is, like, that fear, it fades a lot, but I don't think it ever really goes away.
No.
Um, and I know some people who've been in business for years and they're still like a little bit scared when someone asks them for a price, or like when they've raised their prices.
Yeah.
Like, I raised mine quite recently, and like whenever someone gets in touch to work with me, I'm always really tempted to be like, oh, well, since I've like spoke to you before, you can have it at the old price. And I have to like give myself like a slap on the wrist and be like, no, these are your
No.
prices now.
I know I had to
It's
do that
hard to
recently
do.
as well. Yeah, because I had someone come back to me after a couple of months and they were like, I want to shoot now. And I'm like, oh, I've gone up by £100.
Yeah, but it's, you know, if
They didn't
if
have a
someone
problem
wants
with
to
it.
work with you, it's fine. Yeah, exactly. Like, people know that you have to raise your prices, so
Yeah,
most people won't
exactly.
have an issue with it. And
No.
I think now it's much easier to convey the value that you offer and how good you are, because we've got websites with testimonials on. We've
Yeah.
got, you know, for photographers, it's such a visual kind of profession that you know, you can go on your Instagram and be like, oh my God, these are amazing. I know she's really
Yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, you know, your online portfolio. Whereas I
Yes.
guess before the internet existed, like, it was a bit harder to like,
So hard.
yeah,
I don't know
like
how people did it.
they must have just dragged their portfolio around with them. But yeah, so it's
Literally.
so easy now to convey like the value. And also, if you have someone who wants like a certain, want like a certain kind of photography, and you've done that before, like, you can always send them examples of it as well now,
Exactly.
so they can see how well it fits what they're looking for as
Yeah.
well.
Perfect.
So yeah.
So I have one more question, which is kind of about feeling confident and on top of financial situations in general. So
Yeah.
we're talking like keeping on top of bookkeeping and tax season, and any just 3 to 4 tips on how to be really on top of that.
Yeah, so okay, so in terms of like bookkeeping and tax, I would say decide how often you want to update your bookkeeping. Put a little reminder in your phone, and like make sure you've got an alert set for it. And just do it every time you get that little alert. So most people tend to do it monthly. I don't know how often you do it.
I use QuickBooks, and most of
Ah,
my bookkeeping is everything pretty much is transactioned online.
yeah.
I have very few like payments that I do physically, so that makes my bookkeeping really easy. However, if I do like with my petrol and stuff, I'll sit down once a month and just log that in as well.
Yeah. Oh, also QuickBooks app is really good because it logs your
So
mileage.
good. I
So
love
yeah,
it.
I really recommend it. And like,
Yeah.
because you can connect your bank account, literally all you need to do is kind of go through and check everything's like working and it's up to date.
If there's
That's it.
anything if there's any software I ever recommend to anyone of anything, it's QuickBooks. It's really
It's
cheap
really good.
and it does everything for you. Like, I invoice from QuickBooks. I can see at a glance how much tax I have to pay roughly, like it gives you an estimate. I can download a CSV file and send it straight to my accountants, and they get to see everything there. It's the best thing.
It's really good. And it's really cheap. I
So
have
cheap.
worked with Free Agent in the past, and they're really good as well. And they're
Cool.
also British. They're based in Scotland, so their customer
Great.
service is really good in terms of like our tax, because
Cool.
we used to use QuickBooks in my old job. Whenever I asked them about like VAT, they never knew what to say. So I was just like,
Oh no.
oh. But yeah, so but QuickBooks is cheaper than Free Agent. I think it's
Okay.
actually, I think it's like £3 for the first 6 months.
It is.
So
Like, I
it's
think it's
really good.
£2.50 for the first 6 months or something just crazy like that.
Yeah.
And then
They've
after that,
just
it's only, I
increased
think
their
it's only about,
prices to £3.
oh, oh.
So they've done what we've been discussing. Well done, QuickBooks.
Oh, well, they're done. But I think even after that, it's only £8 a month or something.
Yeah, like it's well worth it for like that effort.
Yeah, it takes so much work out of it. So I do love it. This is we're not being sponsored, by the way.
No, no spons, no spons.
No spons.
But I do love QuickBooks. I personally use a spreadsheet because I like to have that kind of control, and
And
I
you've
just
got
like
a
to kind of
downloadable
put
one,
in.
don't you?
I do. Go and download it from my website. No, but seriously, if anyone does want to use a spreadsheet for it, there is one on my website, and it like works out all your profit for you as well, so that you can know how much tax you have to pay. So yeah, so that's my first tip, is just kind of set a date to go through your bookkeeping. Even if you do use QuickBooks, just set a date once a month to just make sure it's still sort of uploading. Sometimes technology fails us. But hopefully not, touch wood. But yeah, so I always say just set it in your diary. That way you're not you don't have that cloud of like, oh, I really need to do this, but I can't be bothered. You just get a little alert, do it, and then it's done for the rest of the month, and you don't have to think about it again. My second tip is to save about 30% of each invoice that gets paid for tax. And
okay, that's more than I thought, so that's good to know.
Yeah, so if you're on basic rate tax, which is 20%, if you save a little bit extra, then that should cover like your national insurance as well. And if you've got student loan repayments, it should cover that too, hopefully. It's always better to have a bit more than not enough. Yeah,
totally.
And you know, if you've got money left over, like, go and buy yourself something nice. But yeah, so I always say like put that in a separate account, like put it in a savings account. A lot of people
have you heard of the profit first technique? Because that's what I do.
Yeah, so that's a book, isn't it?
It is. It's really good.
Yeah, someone was telling me to read it the other day, and I was like, I know I need to, but I've got a list of books like this big.
It's a good one.
Need to read that one. Do you want to explain that one a little bit then? Because I've heard a lot of people like rave about that.
I can explain it probably quite badly, but I'll give it a go. But it's basically it's a technique sort of for managing your money, written by a guy. It's called Profit First, and I highly recommend the book. It's a really good book. And essentially you have 4 bank accounts, and you split your money into different bank accounts. So I have an expenses account where I keep all the money that I use to pay for my business expenses. Then I also have a profit account where I put profit each of every like job I do. A little bit of profit goes in there. I have a tax account, and these are all just savings accounts like within my same banking service. And I just basically move a bit of money into the tax account and then also into a personal expenses account, which is the money I pay myself with. Yeah. And they're broken up into percentages. So I think at the moment I've been putting 15% into my tax, but I will now increase that to 30. And I've been putting 30% into my expenses account, 5% into a profit account, and then 50% into a personal expenses account, which is the money I pay myself. Yeah. And this is the first time I've ever felt really confident in my money management, because I can see at all times exactly how much I have where. And the whole idea is that you take the profit out of your business first rather than the costs, so that you automatically from day one, like even if you make £100 in a year, you take 5% of that and you get to pay yourself a bit of profit. And he talks about taking out money once a quarter to buy yourself something. And the idea is that your business immediately is benefiting you rather than you slaving away, you know, doing the work for your business rather than your business doing the work for you. And there's much more complicated than that, but that's a quick summary of the profit first technique. And I really, really love it. And it's made my money management so much easier.
Okay, this is great, because this is literally what I was just going to say.
There we go.
Yeah, so in terms of the bank accounts, I would always say do it that way. Cool. Because it just
already doing it anyway.
Yeah, there you go then. So if I'm going to read that book. But no, with clients, I always like recommend they do that, just because if you're a sole trader, you don't actually have to have a business account. You can just get paid into your current account. I would not recommend that. You can even if you're very organized with it, as you obviously are, then it's fine. But I think
I have two. So I have 2 bank accounts. I have one that I use just for my, like, I basically move the money into a separate current account. So I've technically got 2 current accounts.
Yeah, that's fine. So you can use a current account. It doesn't have to be a business account. It can just be like another current account. But I would say, like, don't have your like personal bank account as like where you get paid as well. No, because it just gets confusing. And also it's hard to let go of that money once it's in your bank account. So I would say like have it in a separate account, take out your, you know, expenses, take out your tax, put them in different accounts so you know how much you've got, and like pay yourself. So I just like pay myself a salary out of it. So if I have a really good month, I still like pay myself the same amount.
Yeah, me too.
Because then, you know, it goes up and down all the time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like, and apparently this is the case no matter how far you get in, you still have like good months and bad months. So
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm looking forward to more of that. But yeah, so like, you know, then if you have a bad month, you've not spent all the money in the good month, and you're not kind of like struggling that month. So if you always kind of like, and once you've been doing it for a year or so, you'll have like an average amount of how much you make. And that's really handy for pricing as well, because then you'll know, you know, I'm struggling a little bit on this, so I need to up my prices a bit because I'm finding it hard to make ends meet, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What is my third tip? I think my last tip is just know your numbers. Don't like bury your head in the sand and be afraid to look at how much you've made and how much you need to make, because it's surprising how many people don't know how much money they need to make each month. So if you kind of like maybe have a month of just tracking how much money you spend, and then you'll know how much like all your kind of essentials coming out are, like your bills and everything. But also, you know, if there's any sort of habits, like a lot of people have strange money habits that they haven't realized, which like I do, like so things like, you know, if you buy your dinner every day instead of just doing a weekly shop, you tend to go to Tesco and like pick up a load of rubbish when you go there. So just things like that, and then you can kind of like be very aware of how you spend and kind of change any habits that you need to, but also be aware of how much money you actually need to make. If you're on top of your accounting all the time and you know how much your business is making, then you've got a better idea of like the patterns that like that happen, like, you know, the seasonal patterns with most businesses. I'm not sure about fashion. Is there like a sort of really, really busy period in fashion?
I've always noticed that, at least for me, January to April tends to be quite busy. It peaks sort of in February because everyone's shooting ready ahead of the summer, and then May and June tends to be dead. No, like nothing in May and June, and then it tends to pick up again sort of July, August, and September. And then at this time of year, it's busy because everyone wants to get everything done before Christmas.
Yeah, I think that's pretty average. I think for a lot of industries, like for me, with doing accountancy stuff and like financial coaching, January is like crazy busy for me. So I was really lucky because I actually went full time in January. So
perfect.
I knew that it was going to be okay, because if nothing else, I'd have a load of tax returns that I could do for people.
Sure.
But yeah, you know, if you're like on top of how much money you're making each month, then you can see. And also, you know, when your expenses go up each month, like when things have to get renewed, like your insurance or like your web hosting, that kind of thing. Or like, you know, if there's certain months where you do a lot of travel and it's a bit more like, I don't know, I think a lot of people do a lot more travel sort of now. We're coming to the end of the year because there's more like kind of Christmas things going on. But yeah, and also like, you know, knowing if you've actually got sort of, if your business is working for you basically, and if it's sustainable, because if you're looking every month and seeing like, oh, like it's not made as much as I need to make for like the last 3 months, then you know then that something needs to change. And the more on the ball you are with that, then the quicker you can turn that around, hopefully, and you know, not get yourself or the business sort of in trouble. So very long-winded way of saying, just like be aware of the numbers, like be knowledgeable about it, don't stick your head in the sand. I know it's like super scary, because if you kind of know that you're having a bit of a quiet time, you might not want to look at like your profit that month, but it's so important. And it goes a long way to making you feel like a lot more confident with money and a lot more I guess empowered around it, because you kind of, you know your stuff then.
I recently, in the last maybe 6 months, I started using a Monzo card. Do you know what they are? really good because the app is so easy to use. And what I've done, this is just for my personal money, not even for my business. I give myself a certain amount each month, and then I actually split my money up into little pots that you can make, and I just name them like, this is, I'm giving myself this much for petrol, and then I'm giving myself this much for eating out, and this much for doing workouts. And I move every time I need to buy something, I just move a little bit of money, how much I need, into my main spending account. And it means I'm just always aware of how much I've got. And if I suddenly realize I'm spending too quickly, then I can quickly realize that and sort of rein it in. Or, you know, if I need to find money somewhere, I can go and do that. But that's been a really, really good technique I found of managing really my personal money.
It's kind of like, it's almost like treating yourself like a child and giving yourself like an allowance. Like, I do it kind of like, so I make sure my bills go out on the same day, so I know how much I've got left over. And then I'll like put all that into like, not a proper savings account, but like, you know, the little e-savers. And I'll just send myself like my budget each week so that I don't go over, because like, the way I see it is like, I can't spend money that I don't have. Whereas like, if there's £400 in my bank account, because I don't like using cash. And like, a lot of the time I will recommend to people, like, you know, if it makes it harder to spend money and you don't mind doing it, just take the amount of cash out that you want to spend, because it feels more real than just swiping a card. But I am quite bad for doing that. So, because I don't like having money.
No, I'm the same.
But, so like, you know, you can't spend that money if it's not there. So like, I just put a certain amount in, and then I know that I need to sort of be aware of how much I'm spending, because I've only got like X amount in my bank account left for the week, and I need to make that last.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, stuff like that. If you go, not to like plug myself, but if you go to my Instagram, there's a highlight called Money Tips, and it's got like a load of apps that are really good for helping you save money. So I think Monzo's on there. Yeah, Clear Score's great. I can never sing their praises enough. That's just for like credit score, but they will give you tips based on like what your financial goals are. So like, if you want to save for a house, they'll give you like a load of tips on that. They'll also tell you where you can improve your credit score and like how you can do it. So it doesn't just say like, your credit score is bad, and not tell you why. If your credit score is bad, it'll say like, because you've applied for too much credit in the last 6 months, or you've defaulted on this, and you can see all your accounts, and it's free as well. Amazing. So you have to pay for a lot of them. That one's free.
There's one called Yolt as well that is quite good. It puts all your bank accounts into one app.
That's really handy. I think that is in the list, hopefully. But yeah, my boyfriend really likes that one. He says it's really good.
Yeah, so does mine.
We also have like a pot that we have every month. So like, me and Kev, my boyfriend, will put like £200 each in like, well, we're going to put it in like a joint account at some point, but at the moment we have like a literal like thing that we put the money in. A literal pot. And like, that'll be our sort of like fun money for the month. And like, so if we want to go out for food, or we want to go out for a drink, we'll just take from that. And once that money's gone,
we do the exact same thing. We have a joint account that we each put in a little bit amount of money in, and it's used for buying our food shop, and also doing anything like going out for dinner, or going into the cinema or something like that. That is exactly how we do it too. That's why I have bank accounts everywhere.
I do. I name them as well. So like, if I'm saving up for something, it's not just called savings account. It's called
I'm the same.
House account or something like that. Because sorry, my battery's flashing.
It's fine.
It was charged. It's just an old phone. It goes down very fast.
I was gonna say, should we ask if anyone has any questions? Before we go, because we've been on for quite a long time. And I'm just going to see if anyone has any questions. They might not. They might be too shy, because no one wants to talk about money.
Feel free to DM me if anyone wants to ask me a question. Go
and add Julia on Instagram and then send her a message. But I am going to try my best to save this. I think that I can do it. And I will leave it for 24 hours here at least. And then I'm going to try and upload it to IGTV as well.
Cool. I think. Yeah. Can you like record I know you can record your screen. I wonder if you can like record it for the live or like export
Apparently you can save. When I end it, apparently a little thing comes up to say that you can save it and download it to your phone. So I'm going to try. If not, I will. I know. And if not, I will record my screen. I'll figure something out. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I hope that is true, because I'm always annoyed that I can't save my lives.
I know.
Like, why?
I don't hold me to that, but I was Googling the other day and I was like, there must be a way. And then it came up, but I don't know if they took away the feature. I don't know. We'll find out very soon.
Or maybe it's a new one and they're like trialing it.
Maybe that does happen.
Selected. Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions or anyone asks you questions, feel free to send them to me, or anyone who's watching and is too shy to ask.
Yes.
Feel free to DM me. I will answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Julia. I will speak to you really soon.
See you soon. Bye.